Reflections of Ourselves celebrates the rich cultural heritage of Canadians. My name is Tracy Locko, and I'm the lead artist and organizer of this fabulous exhibition. Reflections of Ourselves is an exploration of who are we? I think of it as a genealogical maple tree that presents cultural heritage through material culture. It is a reflection of our society in multidimensional ways. With a diameter of over 3 feet, 4 feet at its base, this tree is very old, probably more than 200 years, and it predates Confederation. Each of the bark segments has the names of the various sociolinguistic cultural groups that are present in Canada. It grows from deep Indigenous roots, starting at the base and growing up to when the initial settlers came and the more recent immigrant groups adding in. I hand-lettered each of the bark segments using a wax resist process similar to batik, and hand-dyed each of the bark segments with a bark-type texture. Each of the tree branches is made of copper wire and plastic tubing. My leaves are individually stitched in the range of colors found throughout the seasons. They represent the common threads and the mixing of our cultures. The cultural leaves are then arranged within this color palette. I provided the outline of the leaf shape to each leaf artist, but the choice of materials, techniques, design, and story was entirely up to them. And each, as you can see, each leaf is unique and tells its own individual story. They are done in a variety of techniques, which include embroidery, quilting, felting, weaving, batik, lace, crochet, beading, quill work, hair, sinew, and leather work, painting, drawing, origami, collage, marbling, photo transfer, and digital printing. Materials range from cotton, linen, silk, and canvas fabric, felt, wool, embroidery floss, silk, pearl cotton, metallic, and other threads. Wire, sequins, beads, shells, moose hide, deer hide, birch bark, sinew, sweetgrass, caribou hair, fish scales, seeds, paper, inks, paint, and ceramics. The artist statements are an important component of the exhibition. Each tells an individual story. Some have included their statement in their cultural language. They are organized around the exhibition space, alphabetically by cultural group, but it's also possible to look up each individual artist by name and find their cultural group.
My name is Fatuma Mulunji. I identify as a Swahilian from Uganda. I came to Canada in December of 1999. I thought about what would I use to identify myself as a Ugandan living in Canada. So I immediately thought of the crested crane. And my inspiration comes from the beauty of the crested crane and what it means to the Ugandan people. So the crested crane is the national bird of Uganda. So for the maple leaf, I chose 2 colors, green and red, which kind of symbolizes the Canadian weather. The crested crane, I did choose fine, thin, golden and sparkling thread for the crown on the head of the crested crane. And I used thick black thread for the legs and other parts of the body. But for the middle part of the body, I actually wanted to use real feathers.
My name is Catherine Rowland. I'm a fine mix of European, First Nations, and Hawaiian. It depicts, the leaf is very much like this. It has the 2 palm trees on it, which is to depict them leaving Hawaii and coming here to the Pacific Northwest. The tall ship sailing in to, it's a harbor view, the silhouette of Beaufort Harbor, where my family was raised. The sun and the clouds I put in there as their like navigational tricks for the Hawaiians. The Hawaiians were great navigators, and they used the sun and the stars and the clouds to navigate.
Jochman and Hat Cholakten Queenchna. I just mentioned how are you doing? My name is Cholakten, and I grew up with the name Rick Harry, but I go by my ancestral name. I am Coast Salish, Squamish, which how I would say Squamish Oath of the Squamish people, and Nam Geese from the people on Vancouver Island, top of Vancouver Island. This is the leftover of that piece. When I cut it out, I thought I'll just hang on to it and hung it up in the shop. When I did, I made a stem, and it was in cedar, so I wanted to bring the cedar into the piece. And these eyes here just represents that we are always being watched by our creator, our ancestors, our community, family, and ourselves. So in Salish design, that's to remind us that we're being watched. So we need to carry ourselves in a good way at all times.
My name is Vivian Liu. I'm Vietnamese. I came to Canada when I was 11 years old. In the front, I hand embroidered a depiction of the terraced rice fields, which are a magnificent symbol of my country's robust agriculture and majestic landscape. In the back, I glue actual rice grains harvested from Vietnam. I've arranged the rice grains pattern in a rain pattern to complete the circle of heaven and earth. I've always loved the diversity that Canada embraces, and that is what attracted me to this project, is being able to be together in a large group that celebrates inclusivity. This project has inspired me to reflect upon the self, the society, and the synchronicity of both.
My name is Sonia Elliott. My mother arrived in Canada in the early 60s. She met my father in Acapulco and they decided to settle here. I knew I wanted to do the sugar skull, so I used applique just to start my design, and then I layered up fabric and batting and worked from there, doing a lot of hand embroidery. I did couching by machine, beadwork, because I'm also interested in beadwork. Every year on November 1st and 2nd in Mexico, and now starting in Canada too, we do have a celebration in Toronto. They celebrate Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. It is a day when it is thought that our ancestors are closest to visiting us on Earth, so they come for a visit.
My name is Nanette Girodi, and I'm the Executive Director of the Aurelia Museum of Art and History, and my cultural heritage is Hungarian. I was inspired by, of course, the iconic image of that red flower that is very reminiscent of the Matyo pattern. And then I just started sketching and drawing. I looked at different types of flowers. I looked at some of my Hungarian books. Of course, I went online for some research just to try to find the flowers that I particularly liked, and then I just created my own design. So Tracy Locko and I have worked together on a previous exhibition prior to COVID. And then Tracy had told me about this exhibition idea that she had, and I naturally thought it would be a great fit to have launch here at the Aurelia Museum of Art and History.
My name is Tracy Locko, and my paternal grandparents came from the Ukraine. They came in the 1920s, and unfortunately, my grandparents died when I was very young. And my father worked hard to assimilate into Canadian culture, and so I have very little knowledge of my Ukrainian heritage through him. Growing up as a child and a teenager, my mother, who is not Ukrainian, had a Ukrainian friend, and that friend taught us how to make pisanki. And so that became the actual connection that I have to my Ukrainian heritage. We have here, the leaf is densely stitched with standard sewing thread, so that's just the background shape. And then I've used the same standard sewing thread to stitch the individual designs on the leaves. The background colors, the large color areas are done by machine, and then the detail is embroidered by hand.
Okinistawanako ka pisumaka, and that's running coyote in English. And I'm from the Kainai First Nation, also known as Blood Indian Reserve number 148 in southern Alberta, and I'm a part of the Blackfoot Confederacy. For me, I always, like to always incorporate some of our artistic methodology. In this case, beading, and this is really basic beading. And even with their artwork, I like to use these methods that have been used for thousands of years to carry them on. And that's the beadwork that you've seen there. So, and it's just to represent, the connection that First Nations have to the environment, and how, we work together. We didn't try to overtake each other, or, it was just, we're a family. And then you see the symbols there. As long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the rivers flow. Basically, the leaf embodies a lot of our storytelling, our history, our culture, but most importantly, our science and physics.
My name is Gabriela Rosende. I was born in Chile, which is in the most southwest point of the South American continent. My leaf design was inspired by the current knowledge that my bloodline has South American indigenous DNA. Rumors of having Mapuche ancestry were confirmed after my nephew took a DNA test out of curiosity. The materials I used were an embroidery needle, felt, deconstructed yarn, and just time. The choice of yarn was inspired by the llama, alpaca, and sheep wool used in traditional textiles, both in indigenous and European influenced fabrics. The deconstruction of the yarn was both a practical tool so that the yarn could readily fit through a needle, but it was also a representation, I guess, of my search into my own history and breaking down the barriers to my ancestry.
My name is Joseph Muscat. I was born on the island of Malta. Since the exhibition centers on a culture, I thought, wow, the Maltese people are known for their lace making. Lace is used in the priest's habits, in the altar cloth that is used, as well as special occasions like baptisms and weddings. Again, lace was very hard to miss. It was always very present and an indication of both the cultural heritage and an indication that something special was in process.
My name is Carmen Dennis. I'm from the Tahltan Nation. I chose moose tracks because that's like one of our biggest main sources of food, traditional-wise. We use the hide for tanning, like everything in the moose usually gets used up. You see them a lot, like young boys, young girls, they learn how to hunt. We're out on the land all the time. The central design came from a knife sheath, so it was replicated. Colors are similar and not exactly the same. And then on the right side, there are crow tracks, which represent my clan. Moose hide is something of like being revived. Most of the younger generation is starting to get back into that, learning how to tan moose hide. Yeah, my coworker and I were teaching people how to work on moose hide again.
My name is Mila Borden, and my heritage is African Nova Scotian. For my leaf, I wanted to design something that reminded me of a place in my hometown, the Afrocentric Heritage Park. The park is the main gathering spot for hosting outdoor events in the Black community of New Glasgow. The technique I chose for my leaf was machine piecing, and I used some thread painting. The materials that I used to make my leaf, I used some cotton fabric, and I used the Pan-African colors.
My name is Claire Lavinia, and I'm a second-generation Filipino-Canadian. My parents moved from the Philippines to Canada in the early 2000s, and my sister and I were both born here. My leaf is a multi-generational piece that was created in collaboration with my mom and my sister. And we work together to represent materials that are most unique to the Philippines, that best represent our art forms, our clothing, and our accessories. In the center of our maple leaf is a rose that is made out of piña fabric. And piña is a Filipino textile or cloth that's made using the fibers of pineapple leaves. I was interested in this project to be able to have a piece of my work exhibited in Ontario and to be able to represent my heritage in an exhibition that celebrates all the many cultures that are in Canada.
My name is Nada Binyamin and I am Assyrian. I came to Canada in 1993, so I've been here for more than half of my life. I wanted to do something that the modern Assyrian do, and it's also related to our ancient history as well. So I thought of, that's how I thought of Akitu, which is one of the most ancient festivals where I used the fabric. I stitched it with hand stitching, and with the filling in the background, I did it all with embroidery, with hand making. In a way, we're all a little bit different, but then we're all humans, and these little things brings us together, and it's interesting. Like for me, seeing this, like an idea of a tree that has a little bit of each culture that live in Canada, it's kind of saying that Canada is this beautiful tree.
I can't tell you how exciting it is to be here and to see all of you. This has just been quite a journey. It is my hope that by acknowledging the past and recognizing the past, that we will all be able to move forward in achieving truth and reconciliation. So where did the idea for Reflections of Ourselves come from? It was about 4 years ago, and I was hearing a lot of reports in the news about anti-immigrant sentiment, hate crimes, things like that, and I found it very troubling. You know, this isn't the Canada that I know, and it's not the Canada that I think I live in, and I wanted to do something about it. Trees are really important. They live in communities, they provide food, they provide shelter, and they provide the oxygen that we breathe. So then the idea came together. I thought, aha, I could create a tree. And what if I asked one person from each of all of the communities present in Canada to create a leaf honoring their heritage? There are 100 artists and 100 communities represented on this tree now, but there's room for more. So if you have friends or if you know people whose culture is not represented, please let me know. There's a guest book. Leave your name and contact information. The exhibition will travel, so there's time to add more leaves to the tree. So I hope you'll all take time to read through the statements and admire the leaves and get to know someone from a culture you didn't know before. So thank you all. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I couldn't be happier. It is such fun to watch visitors to the exhibition come up to the tree and look at the different leaves, and then start to look for their own cultural heritage and identify that or those leaves, and then look for the cultural group in the tree bark And then they start to read the artist statements and go all the way through the room. And it's wonderful to see this cultural exchange and cultural learning actually happening. There are many people to thank. Ninette Giarodi and Tanya Cunnington of the Aurelia Museum of Art and History for supporting this project from the concept stage. Cleo Skavinsky for engaging Indigenous participants. Peter Blakelock for photographing the leaves and installation. Jennifer Cogill for graphic design and compiling the artist statements. A generous private donor for funding the Leaf Artist Honorariums. Our talented videographers Tyler Grace and Chris Lewis. Music composed and performed by Mark Wiley. The Ontario Arts Council for an artist-presenter collaboration grant to create this documentary. The Blue Mountain Foundation for the Arts for the Robert G. Kemp Arts Award in recognition of this project. And of course, all of the wonderful leaf artists for creating a leaf in honor of their heritage.